The event is now live. John, please take it away.
Thank you, Kishana. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the latest installment of our ongoing editorial webinar series, Coffee Talk. Each hour-long information-packed episode, organized by the hardworking folks at Redmond Magazine, features the observations and insights of an independent expert on a wide range of tech industry topics. Many thanks to the underwriting sponsor of this episode, Red Canary, a pioneer of managed detection and response to secure your endpoints, cloud, and whatever comes next. Without their support, this series would not be possible. And thanks to you for joining us. I'm John K. Waters, Editor-in-Chief of the Converge 360 Group of 1105 Media, and I'll be your moderator. The topic of today's talk is Enterprise Ransomware Threat Outlook, and our main presenter is technologist, creator of compelling content, and senior resultant, Howard M. Cohen. But before we get started, just a bit of housekeeping. This episode is being recorded for later access. Keep an eye out for an email with a link to that recording. It'll be coming your way in the next few days. We're making some time during the talk for questions. You can type your questions into the Q&A box at any time. Our sponsors provided some extra resources you definitely won't want to miss. They're available now on your console. And as a small thank you to the 200 attendees who stick with us to the end, we will be sending you a $5 gift certificate to Starbucks. It's a cup of Java to go with the data. Now let's meet our first speaker. Wow. Howard M. Cohen has spent, Howard M. Cohen has spent more than 40 years in the IT industry. He's held senior executive positions in many of the top channel partner organizations, and he currently writes for and about IT in the IT channel. Howard is a sought-after speaker, an insightful observer of the technology landscape, and one of our favorite presenters. You're in for a great session. Take it away, Howard.
Thank you, John. A cup of Java to go with the data. Oh, I don't know. Yeah. I like cup of Joe to go with the info. That's my favorite. Anyway, hello everybody, and welcome to Enterprise Ransomware Threat Outlook. You'll notice, those of you who are with us regularly will notice that there's two new QR codes on my splash page. The bottom one leads you to the Business Technologist Journal, my new Substack. The top one takes you to my website. So if you'd like to learn more about me and what I do, please feel free to visit. Otherwise, let's get to the word of the day. Yeah, you know that I love to start every session with a word of the day. I think it's the writer in me. And for sessions like this about ransomware, I have in the past used words like PEBCAC. Yeah, I know it's not a word, it's an acronym. But PEBCAC, here's another time that I used it, came from an error message that says that the problem exists between keyboard and chair. And that spells out PEBCAC. Problem exists between keyboard and chair. For those of you who don't like PEBCAC, we have some other options. We have picnic, problem in chair, not in computer. Hey. We have EBCAC, we just left off the first P. PEBMAC, not Big Mac, PEBMAC. Problem exists between monitor and chair. The next one is so popular, and I'm sure you'll recognize it, but you won't recognize it necessarily when I say that it's the ID10T error. But when you see it, you recognize it immediately. The ID10T error. Then there's the level 8 issue, where we have the 7-layer networking model. Well, the application layer being the top, who uses the application? The user. And so layer 8 issue has to do with the user. And I think IBM really hit it right on the nail, right on the head, with IBM, idiot behind machine, which is better than I'll buy Mac or I've been moved or any of the others that they use. Okay, so PEBCAC has been a popular word of the day for these sessions. Another one has been money, because 95% of all breaches are financially motivated. So if we're going to talk about ransomware, we will be talking about money. But in thinking about today's session, I really wanted to focus a little bit more on the very underlying nature of ransomware. And to do that, I turned to a character that I've always been extremely fond of, the Shadow. I couldn't get the echo effect, so you'll forgive me, but The Shadow was very well known for saying, "Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men?" That was my best Orson Welles, guys. Well, the reason that I quote this is because the word of the day today is evil. Ransomware is an evil thing that people do to each other. It is. It's evil. And if you don't believe me, take it from somebody who has received a ransomware note in email. Here's what one looks like. And when you get it in your inbox, your stomach sinks. You feel like, oh my God, the ground under me just cracked open, and I'm falling into a fissure. The world, life is over. They're telling me how much time I have left. They're telling me if I give them $300, they'll give my data back. Oh my God, the clock is ticking. All these horrible things. Then there's this friendly guy, the Dark Encryptor. Now he's cool. He only wants $100. But it's going to go to $350 if you don't pay within the next 5 days. Again, not something you want to get in your inbox. Or this one, it only wants $200. But skull and crossbones, not pretty. If you ever have actually received one, you know what I'm talking about. It's just painful. It's just like suddenly everything else stops. And that is why I've referred to the word of the day today being evil. Evil because the cyber criminal who is committing the ransomware is preying upon a hapless user and their propensity for human error. I could not find a user more hapless than this one. And the fact is that they're trying to get him to commit an error. People are fallible. People are not like digital devices. They're going to make mistakes. In this case, though, the cyber criminal is trying to force our user to make mistakes. So, a little news, ransomware attacks resurged in 2023. And the reality is, a lot of people think that ransomware kind of fell off in 2022. What we've discovered more recently is that our ability to see ransomware was what was lacking in 2022. We lost visibility. The attacks were still going on. And there are new gangs out there committing these attacks, like Royal and Beyond and Play. They're joining existing players like Lockbit and Clop. Clop, by the way, is supposed to be CL0P. So it looks very digital-like. Anyway, these guys are all committing mass-level ransomware attacks. Huge. As a matter of fact, Lockbit committed 45% of them so far this year. So Lockbit is a big, big ransomware gang. In 2022, as far as we know, ransomware was involved in at least 25% of all breaches worldwide. If there were 4 breaches, 1 at least had ransomware as an element in it. They say that increased by 13% last year. I can almost guarantee you it was a whole lot more. But again, we didn't really have the visibility we needed coming off of the whole COVID activity. People made some mistakes. Now, most ransomware activity takes place right here at home in the beautiful United States. Aren't you proud? 43% of victims of ransomware are here, from sea to shining sea. And the most targeted companies are those in the mid-market, between 50 million to 60 million in annual revenue. Not to say that larger and smaller don't get attacked. They do. But this is the hump, if you will, in the bell curve. This is where most of it happens. The industries most targeted, no surprises here. Manufacturing was number 1. Professional services of all kinds, scientific, technical, so forth. Number 2. And educational services, schools, were actually number 3. Many, many more. No industry is exempt. And sometimes they're not industry targeted at all. I also said that money earned the right to be a word of the day because money is very much a part of ransomware. given that you're supposed to pay a ransom, there's money. So in 2022, as best we know, the average ransom payment $812,000 per incident. $812,000 paid to gain nothing, to just get your existing data back. And $812,000. Now, this is interesting. In 2023, the average cost of a ransomware attack increased 13%, which you would think would get us to about $1 million. I'm sorry, $1 million. But no, it's 5.13 million. That's because this statistic doesn't only count the ransom. Think about this. This includes all of the costs involved in recovering from a ransomware attack. So it's 5 times what the ransom came out to be. Now, that's a guesstimation on my part. I didn't have parallel stats for you, but the cost of a ransomware attack is way in excess of the ransom that they ask for. And the reason for that is it takes almost a year. It takes almost a year to identify and contain a ransomware attack. All during that time, you are definitely bleeding money. Now, you can reduce that hit by more than 10%, like 11% if you call in law enforcement, but more than a third of attacks are never reported for whatever reason. And the funny part is that that's kind of illegal in some businesses. In some industries, there are regulations requiring you to report to specific agencies if you suffer an attack. So we're not there yet. People aren't taking this as seriously as they need to. And in many cases, they just don't know how to take it as seriously as they need to. Here's a big one. The overall cost of cybercrime is going to hit $8 trillion in 2023. Now, you thought that took government to waste $8 trillion. No, 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 no. The world will lose $8 trillion to cybercrime this year. And that's going to grow by 20% over 2 years to hit $10.5 trillion by 2025. $10.5 trillion lost to cybercrime. So if you don't think it's prevalent, think again. Just ransomware cost the world $20 billion back in 2021. They're expecting that will increase 13-fold by 2031 in 10 years. So we're going to be losing $265 billion just to ransomware, never mind all the other attacks. So last year or the year before, when it was 20 billion, they estimated that an attack took place once every 11 seconds. That's going to go down to 2 seconds by 2031. So every other second, somebody's attacking somebody with ransomware. How do you think the odds are going to increase that you'll be one of those people who gets hit? Every 2 seconds. Okay, so we've established that this is a nasty threat that has the potential to do a great deal of damage. Let's just take a look at ransomware itself. What means ransomware? What are we talking about? So one good definition, ransomware is a subset of malware. It actually uses malware that can lock and encrypt data on a victim's computer. Then you get notified that it happened, and you can't get your data back until you pay the ransom. Just that simple. I say it's a slightly dated definition because now more and more cyber criminals are exfiltrating the data. They're stealing the data. They're taking it away completely, not just encrypting it. So you don't need a key anymore. You need your data back. And that's even more frightening. So that's a general definition. Actually, there are more than one type of ransomware. There are several. There are 4 that I can think of. The first one's a simple locker, where you get locked out of your network. You can't access your network. Your password doesn't work anymore. Your MFA fails. You can't get at your network. And so you've got to pay the criminal to give you back your access. Crypto is the name that people use for the one we talked about a moment ago, where they encrypt your data. And you've got to pay before they'll give you the decryption key to unencrypt your data or decrypt your data. And so crypto is a really common kind of ransomware. A newer one, a double extortion. You thought you needed to pay a ransom just to get your data back. You get your data back, you're all fat, dumb, and happy with your data, and you get another ransom note. Oh, by the way, we did copy your data. We still have your data. And if you don't pay this ransom, we're going to release it to the world. We're going to let everybody see your data, your company secrets, your corporate espionage, your books, your customer lists, your product research. I mean, imagine what happens if your intimate, top secret, confidential corporate data suddenly gets posted out there on the dark web or even the normal web. It's horrifying. And so pay this and we won't do it. Double extortion. But wait, there's more, right? And now you don't even really have to be technically adept to commit ransomware. If you would like to commit ransomware, you can get it from the cloud. That's right, ransomware is available as a service. So you simply log in and pay your money, you get your attack kit, you go out and do your attack, and hopefully, for you, you get more back in ransoms than you spent on the service. Yes, ransomware is now a cloud service. To the cloud, huh? So how do they get in? How do they get in? Well, there are three most fundamental infiltration vectors that we've known of for years. The first one was RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. Many of you have used this. You're sitting at home or you're out at a hotel somewhere at a conference, and you log in across the network to your computer back in your office or to a special server back in your office, and it gives you your desktop and all of your applications. Except the data itself isn't transporting back and forth. That takes forever. It's just the screen appearance, which is nothing, very little data. And so you work in that hotel room, and it feels like you're working back in the office. You're directly connected to the network. Everything's good. Here's the problem. Just like you connected to your computer back in the office, other people can connect to your computer back in the office. Now, how do they do that? Well, here's the second infiltration vector. Credential abuse. They've got your passwords. How'd they get them? There are lots of ways to get at people's passwords. There's certainly brute force attacks, which really don't work. It could take you decades to guess out somebody's password. There are still, keyboard listeners that can capture your password as you're typing it. Those definitely still are out there. More common is simple facts like the most commonly used password in all of computing is password. That's right. More people use password as their password than anything else. Otherwise, they're using some combination of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 9. So weak passwords is the second. The third is what I refer to, and this is a technical term, you might want to jot it down, abject stupidity. Abject stupidity. People still write their password on a sticky note and put it under their keyboard, thinking nobody's going to find this. Bad news, folks. Everybody's figured that out. There are some people who actually stick it on their monitor in full view of everybody because they figure nobody needs to get in my access. You're wrong. So a cleaning crew comes in to clean out your office one night. They do that almost every night. And one of them is a bad guy or a bad gal. And they're looking under all the keyboards, making sure it's not dusty under there, and also looking to see if you stuck your password under there. And they find your password, and boom, they can access your network. So credential abuse is a huge vector for those attacking you. And then there's the one that probably most everybody has heard of and everybody fears. And that is phishing. phishing. What is phishing? Okay. First of all, let me let you know that phishing accounts for 1 out of every 3 ransomware attacks. It's a third of the problem. That's bigger than all the others. So phishing is a big deal. It is a form of social engineering. What does that mean? Well, when we do digital engineering, that means we're working on computers and computer equipment and how they work and exploiting how they work in this case. With social engineering, we're not exploiting the digital devices. We're exploiting the person using them. Okay? We're exploiting the person who's using the computer. Now, how are we doing that? Well, it starts off with an authentic looking email, kind of like this one. Looks like it's from Microsoft, has the right colors, the right typography, the right logo. It all looks very genuine, like it's from Microsoft. It could look like it's from you're a bank, or you're a lawyer, or your kid's school, or anywhere, any one of a number of other places. It could look like it's a fake message from your boss who sent you this message. Looks like it's internal to your company. It could be in the form of a fake offer. Click here and you'll be entered into a sweepstakes for a trip around the world. We've all seen something like that. So it could be just an offer wanting you to do that. It could even be a login screen. It looks like your Microsoft 365 login screen. You need to do some word processing or make some spreadsheets, but that's not your Microsoft login. You give it your ID and password, but it's not your Microsoft login. It takes that information and gives it to somebody else who now can get onto your network. Ultimately, it's going to invite you to click on a link or to open an attachment. Either one is a bad idea. Let's use the example in this email that we have on the screen that tells us that our password has expired. But don't worry, we've conveniently provided this here blue button. This blue button. So if you want to keep your password, just click here. Now, of course, if you hover over that button, you'll see the URL has nothing to do with Microsoft. This is not from Microsoft. And it has nothing to do with your password or helping you do anything. Quite frankly, it's helping themselves to your data. So the key is don't click that link. Because once you do, they're now in your network. They can corrupt your data, they can encrypt your data, they can exfiltrate it, they can take it out of there, and then they can move laterally around your network. And they can invade other people's data and other departments' data. And all of a sudden, you have a disaster. All your company's data is being encrypted by somebody outside the company. That's not good news. So don't click the link. Don't open that attachment. Now, as you're sitting there nodding your head, let me tell you, millions of people have heard a warning like this and have still clicked that link or clicked that, opening that attachment. That's why ransomware is so popular, because people are so easily fooled. Sorry, just the way it is. And now there are more infiltration vectors, more ways to get in. Attacking unpatched systems. Now, you probably know that Windows Server 2012 is going end of life finally. After 11 years, that's okay. Windows Server 2003 took 13, as did Windows XP. Supposed to only be 5. Cyber criminals know when you're using an operating system that went out of useful life and that has been replaced. And there are no more patches coming out of it. And so they become the favorite target of every cyber criminal out there. You don't want to be that target. And so keep your software updated. And when you're using it, make sure that you inspect every patch, determine that it's not going to break anything else on your network, and apply that patch as quickly as you possibly can to protect yourself. Now, it may be that it's not even you that gets attacked at first. It may be one of your suppliers who provides you with parts or or chemicals, cleaning supplies, what have you. It may be one of your manufacturers who creates products that you sell. It may be one of your customers. It could be anybody else along your supply chain. If they're vulnerable, then they can be attacked, and the cyber criminal can jump from your associate to you. This is why business associates have to abide by regulatory compliance as much as the business that's actually being regulated. Because anybody who connects to your network can be an open door to invade your network. So supply chain attacks are very popular. Double extortion, as I mentioned earlier, they're finding new ways to get in and get you to pay once to get your data back, pay again to keep them from distributing your data. And ransomware as a service is offering new kinds of infiltration vectors as well, from a whole new class of invader who has no real sophistication, no real knowledge. All they know is that they want your money. The technology is changing as well. What we're seeing now are viruses or worms, Trojans that get planted in your network when you're not looking and just sit there for a while. And then later on, when it looks like there's nothing out there, you're doing all the threat hunting in the world, not finding anything, that Trojan suddenly emerges and launches itself, encrypting your data, cueing the cyber criminal to send the ransom note, and off we go. These invaders are also getting in through your drivers that connect your computers to your peripheral devices and storage. And so forth. Most every device needs a driver, and the cyber thieves know how to get at those drivers and enter that way. Some of these cyber thieves are actually banding together to create industrial consortiums. And some have more, better skills in one area, others better skills in another area. And they're learning to work together to be a bigger, better, bolder thief, stealing your data and holding you for ransom. And that's not fun. Then there's the living off the land techniques. These are terrible. You've seen this. You've seen this in the movies and on television. There's a murder scene, and the detective says, well, looks like the murderer took this here lamp and hit him over the head with the lamp because the lamp was there. Okay? It was a weapon of opportunity. Well, cyber criminals now too. They are finding whatever is there in your environment, your ERP application, your CRM, maybe even your network management application. They're finding ways to exploit those and use them to get at your data. So living off the land, whatever's there, I'll use it and I'll get at your data. Not fun. Ransomware is also evolving. They're getting more sophisticated. We talked about extortion. It doesn't take double extortion. You can find that somebody has copied your data and is willing to do many different things with it. But they'll take a ransom from you and they'll destroy their copy. Okay. Even worse than that is data monetization. They're finding many new ways to monetize your data. Imagine somebody steals 10,000 credit card numbers. They don't even ask you for a ransom. They don't ask you for anything. They don't extort you. They simply sell those credit card numbers to criminals who want to go buy stuff on other people's accounts. And that was probably the earliest way in which stolen data was monetized. They're finding far more creative ways now to sell data that people can use to get at very valuable resources. They're even targeting your cloud services. If you sign up for a cloud services, there are now ransomware thieves who know how to exploit those cloud services to get at your data. So nothing is safe. On-prem was never safe. Even the cloud is no longer safe. And they're expanding. People think it's just Windows that these thieves attack. Not even close. We're seeing attacks on all kinds of platforms, including Linux, Unix, and including Apple iOS, and so forth and so on. If you're running it on a computer, there's probably somebody who's working to exploit it and get at your data. So there are really no safe havens. Also, they're learning to use more and more automation and, yes, artificial intelligence to enable them to attack more places faster. And so where they used to go after a couple of 100,000 users, they're going after millions now. And they're using automation to extend that attack and repeat that attack and geometrically expand their reach. They're also learning to make better use of zero-day vulnerabilities. A new virus comes out every couple of minutes. And yes, antivirus companies are slavishly working to identify the signatures of those new strains and provide you with protection. But there's a period of time in which they haven't gotten to it yet. That's called zero-day. And more cyber thieves are coming to understand how to detect a zero-day exploit and to exploit that zero-day exploit themselves to get into more and more networks that way. So what happens if you're the one attacked? Well, the way I see it, you only have three choices. One is you can pay the ransom and hope to get your data back. But we know that hope is not a strategy. Good news, 2/3 paid the ransom, got their data back. There is a proportion of those that were then attacked shortly thereafter again. 19% paid the ransom and got nothing. Nothing. Another choice is don't pay the ransom and go out of business. You're done. See ya. The fact is that when somebody gets hit by an attack like this, 75% of the time, they're gone, out of business within 6 months of that attack. And then there's the other choice, which is to restore your data from backup. If you continually make current backups and somebody encrypts or steals your data, you can clobber that. You can figure out where they got in, close that up, and then restore from your most recent backup. Unfortunately, that choice number 3 is going away. Why do I say that? Well, because attackers have wised up. They're not only attacking your primary data storage, they're going beyond that, and they're attacking your backup data as well. That's right. They're attacking the backups as well as the live data. And so when you go to restore your backup data, it too is encrypted. And the criminal is laughing, nanny, nanny, tutu. I warned you, you got to pay the ransom. It's not fun. I make light of it, but if you've experienced it, it's very, very, very painful. One of the things you can do about that is to air gap a backup. That is, store it on a storage device that is not connected to the network. Many ways to do that. But by doing it, nobody but you can get to it. So air gapping is a good idea. The other way people approach this is to use immutable storage. Write once and that's it. It can't be written on again. Which, by the way, is the reason that to this day, in 2023, almost half of all data is still backed up to tape. Tape cartridges. That's right. Tape cartridges are a vibrant business. They are selling like hotcakes because you can take them out of the drive, put them in your bag, take them home. You can take them out of the drive, hand them to a driver who shows up in a secure truck and takes them off to a hermetically sealed, halon-protected vault somewhere. You can get it off the network and out of reach. And then if somebody attacks your network, you can get it back, restore it, and get back into business in relatively short time without spending $812,360. Okay, so tape. Okay, we're coming up on the end of my session, so let me just prepare you for attacks. I'm going to complete your Jedi training right now. Ready? Number one, the first and foremost thing you want to do to protect your entire organization against user training is teach them to use a lightsaber. No, teach them how to protect themselves from ransomware. Teach them how to identify a phishing email, what to look for, and what to do if they get a phishing email. Now, do not think under any circumstances that this is a one and done. You've done training, so everybody knows what to do. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. See you someday in the future. No, can't do it. You need to regularly hold another training and another training, regular refreshers to remind people of their responsibilities, to remind them of how easy it is for somebody to slip through, to remind them of what it can cost if they let somebody slip through. And by the way, if you want to motivate, okay, if you really want to motivate your people, here's my suggestion. Pack up your gear, stow your tackle, and go fishing. That's right, get out there and go fishing. I don't mean at a lake. I mean send phishing emails to your own people. Go ahead, send phishing emails to your own people, or have an ethical hacker do that for you. Okay, it's the ransomware version of regular penetration testing. Can we break into the network? In this case, you send a phishing email, and anybody who falls for it gets a note to come see you in your office. And when they get there, you say, I've got some bad news and I've got some good news. The bad news is that we detected that you fell for a phishing scam. And you clicked on a link that opened the door to all kinds of malware and data theft and ransom payments we're going to have to make. Then when you see that they've completely clenched and they're shaking with fear, smile and say, but here's the good news. The person who sent that phishing email was me. I was testing. You failed. That's not good news, right? But boy, is it motivating to the person who failed. Boy, is it motivating to the person who had to be called into the office and told, you clicked on a link we told you never to click on. Nothing motivates people more than fear. I'm sorry. It's not the way that I like to manage. But in the case of an evil attack like this, you have to show them that evil does exist in the world. That's a good way to do it. Whatever you do, and you've heard this a million times, here's one more: multiple layer defense. Not enough to throw up a firewall and hope for the best. You need an intrusion prevention system. You need a multi-factor authentication system, antivirus, anti-malware. You need so many layers that nobody can get through. And these days, you have to focus in on the endpoints, because every endpoint, every laptop, every tablet, every smartphone, they're all doorways into your network. And you must shore them up. You must protect them. It's very powerful. Also consider adopting zero trust. Zero trust network access is not a product. It's not even a product suite. It is a strategy. And it is a strategy that comprises a couple of dozen different protocols and different techniques. When you combine all of them, you're building an all but impenetrable fortress for your network, and that's exactly what you want to do. You want to be sure that you include things like extended detection and response. Okay, it's one thing to detect a problem on its way in, going threat hunting to see that something's happening out on the network that may eventually turn into a problem for you. But if you don't respond to it instantly, you will never achieve the kind of security and the kind of sanity that you really need in these situations. As I mentioned earlier, practice prompt patching. Every patch that comes in, evaluate it to make sure it won't break anything else in your network. But whatever you do, apply that patch promptly. Try saying that 3 times fast. I preach that wherever I go. Yes, I preach practicing prompt patching. Also practice constant backup using the 3-2-1 rule. Very popular, the 3-2-1 rule. 3 backups of all data, 3 backups, using at least 2 different kinds of media, and one of those backups ending up offsite where it cannot be accessed. The 3-2-1. Air gap a copy if you can. If you can't, definitely consider using immutable storage so that it can't be changed once it's stored once. And of course, this wouldn't be a complete analysis if I didn't recommend that you use the force. May the force be with you, and may that force be the force of constant vigilance. This is not going away. This is not a minor issue. Okay, this is not trivial. This is scary. Once every 2 seconds within the next few years, get on top of ransomware. Teach your people. Keep on reminding your people. Practice good computing hygiene and stay safe out there. And with that, I will turn it back to he who secretly is Yoda.
There is no try. There is only do or not do. Okay, here we go. Thanks, Howard. Now let's get to our first Q&A. Remember, you can type your questions into the Q&A box at any time. We'll do our best to get to all of them. And hello, Lynn. We were worried you weren't going to come today. Lynn is one of our regular attendees and always asks amazing questions. So the first question Lynn is asking is, could you share examples of recent high-profile ransomware incidents and their impacts on affected organizations?
No, but you can open up just about any newspaper and you'll see tons of them. I don't have one front of mind right now. They're happening all the time. And quite frankly, in the last year or two, the reports of them, the public reports, have gotten small. I mean, the pipeline was probably the one that everybody knows best. During COVID, when they shut down the pipeline, that was a ransomware attack, and a successful one. But yeah, that. But on a daily basis, ransomware thieves have figured out that if you charge a very low ransom, the likelihood of the victim paying goes way, 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 way up. What is it to pay $200? If you get $200, you've also identified somebody you can go back in and attack again pretty soon. Bad news.
Bad news indeed. Okay, here's one from Key who's wondering, Howard, doesn't encrypting your own files protect them by preventing separate criminals from doing so?
You know, that is an awesome question. And the reason I say it's an awesome question is because you can read 100 different sources and probably get a handful of answers. There are some analysts who believe it's absolutely viable, some who've actually proven it. So yeah, it is physically doable. Somebody can come along and re-encrypt your encrypted data. And then you need their key before you can use your key. But let's say that it wasn't possible. Let's just say that you couldn't do that. Fact is, if I'm a cyber thief and I'm coming in and I find your data encrypted, no problem. I'll just copy it and delete it. That's all. Doesn't take an encryption key to erase a file. So I'll steal your data. And then you have to pay me the ransom to get your encrypted data back. It's encryption is necessary.
Hey, we lost you there, Howard. You're breaking up a bit. You're still breaking up. Hey, well, it looks like I'm afraid we've lost our connection to Howard. It's that's unfortunate. Maybe if he comes on at the end, we can hit a couple more of these questions. But in the meantime, I want to introduce our guest speaker, Alex Spiliotis, a senior manager at Red Canary. Alex is a specialist with extensive experience in security product marketing and market research. Prior to joining Red Canary, he worked at top IT industry analyst firm Forrester, for which he conducted market research across a wide range of security domains. He also worked at big data platform provider Splunk, where he led the marketing of security information and event management products and capabilities. You're in for another great session. Alex, please take it away.
All right. Thanks, John. And thanks, everyone, for stopping by today. As John mentioned, my name is Alex Spiliotis. I'm a senior manager at Red Canary, and I'm excited to talk with you a little bit more about how you can stop ransomware for your organization before it's too late. I think a helpful place to start would be Red Canary's 2023 threat detection report and the insights that we deliver in that report. First of all, if you're not familiar with Red Canary, we provide 24/7 managed detection and response for nearly 1,000 customers across many industries. Every year we take a retroactive look at all the threats we saw the prior year. In this case, we detected tens of thousands of threats and stopped them for again, our nearly 1,000 customers. And we try to take the insights that we get from a retrospective analysis and distill them into techniques, trends, and takeaways for our customers, but also the security community at large. Looking on screen here, I've listed the top 10 threats that Red Canary saw across its customer environments in 2022. Just to clarify terminology, by threat, we mean any suspicious or malicious activity that represents a risk to you or your organization. So if you look at these 10 threats listed here, you'll see some adversary groups, some specific malware variants, even some legitimate tools that are often abused for malicious purposes. These and known threat actors are all listed next to one another. One conspicuous absence, though, you may have noticed, is ransomware. So ransomware was not a top 10 threat that we saw in customer environments in 2020 over the past year, but that's actually somewhat misleading because 8 of the top 10 threats that we saw in our customer environments are precursors to ransomware. If we were not to have detected and stopped these threats early, they could have materialized into ransomware payload delivery, but that was not the case, at least in our customer environments. But I think just the fact that 8 of the top 10 threats that we detected were precursors to ransomware kind of illustrates the looming nature of an ever-present nature of ransomware for organizations across the globe. And just to provide a little background on how Red Canary thinks about ransomware and seeks to stop it, is that we focus our detection capabilities and our response capabilities early on in the adversary intrusion chain. So we focus on detecting initial access by the adversary, reconnaissance activity, and lateral movement. And we focus there so that we can help our customers avoid the more serious repercussions of more mature attacks or attacks as they progress, such as data exfiltration and of course, encryption. As I mentioned, we optimize the detections we create and apply to customer data for that early stage adversary activity. If you talk to, for example, a true incident response provider or a full-fledged IR provider, they're often brought in after exfiltration and encryption. So they might have a different view of the top threats than we do. But this gives you a sense of how we approach protecting our customers from ransomware. And it's critical to avoid the unfortunate situations where an attack ultimately manifests in ransomware payload delivery. You need to think about preventing that type of or pre-ransomware activity in the first place, detecting it early if an adversary moves past your prevention tactics, and of course, efficiently responding to and remediating any sort of ransomware activity when it arises. So I'll first talk a little bit about approaches to preventing ransomware activity in the first place. In looking at data across our customer environments over the past year, we found that users continue to be the most vulnerable link in the initial chains of compromise that we investigate. That's not to user bash. Users, most organizations are not cybersecurity companies, right? Users are trying to go about their jobs to, do the best job they can for whatever their organization's mission is, but they continue to be very vulnerable, and a link that adversaries are exploiting in order to ultimately deliver a ransomware payload to the organization. So protecting your users is a critical aspect of preventing ransomware in the first place. And I'll go through here a few tactics related to security hygiene that you could implement to better protect your users, going forward. All these are with respect to user authentication. First, requiring number matching in the authentication process is a really good security measure. Number matching, if you're not familiar with it, requires a user to input into the website or application to which they're trying to log in, requires them to input a number that they have in either a hard token or a soft token, generally on their phone. This requirement of number matching adds more friction to the adversary and generally requires that the person logging in or attempting to log into the website or application is in possession of a verified device which the user is known to have. So again, the hard token or the soft token that indicates that the user is the one actually logging in. An even better form of protection you can offer users is requiring phish-resistant multi-factor authentication. So phish-resistant forms of MFA kind of take shared secrets and humans out of the authentication equation after kind of initial setup. So basically, the way phish-resistant MFA works is when you're trying to log into a website or application for the first time, you verify the device that you're trying to log in with. The device that you're using then becomes a trusted device, sets up a unique cryptographic relationship with the website or application that you're trying to log into. And then going forward, passwords are often not required to log in because of the strong technical relationship set up between your device, the user's device, and the application or website that they're trying to log into. And to layer on top of the authentication tactics or processes that you can use to protect your users, adding conditional access rules or conditional access policies is a great way to supplement something like phish-resistant MFA. Conditional access policies block authentication based on attributes of a user or an authentication event. So for example, you could block access to SharePoint or OneDrive from unmanaged devices. That could be a conditional access policy. You could force phish-resistant MFA on all admin accounts would be another example. Or you could force a user who exceeds a certain risk threshold to reset their password or re-authenticate on next login. So all these tactics are on screen here are ways that you can improve your organization's security hygiene and protect your users in the process, thus reducing the chance that an adversary would deliver a ransomware payload down the road. Of course, prevention tactics are never fully 100% foolproof. If an adversary compromises one of your user accounts, it's critical that you detect that early. Behavior that you can look for to indicate an account takeover that could lead to ransomware down the road are things like geographically improbable logins, trying to log in across many accounts, trying to log in too many times in too short a window of time. Strange data access and sharing patterns, and also unusual admin console access or configuration changes. You can find all that behavior in logs and telemetry from the platforms that you see on screen here, as well as others. But it's critical to be able to efficiently look at logs from your AWS, Okta, Google, Azure AD, Duo, and distill very efficiently behavior that could tip you off to pre-ransomware activity. And also kind of beyond user behavior, being able to detect anomalous processes, malicious commands, generally understanding what anomalous network activity looks like, things that are often associated with endpoint detection and response technology, having a strong grasp of these things like process command network monitoring will also put you in good stead for being able to stop a ransomware attack before it ultimately results in payload delivery. Thinking now about response, whether you're responding to pre-ransomware activity detected really early in an intrusion chain, or you're in the unfortunate situation where there has been encryption on your network, you need to respond according to an established plan. And that plan cannot just be a very well put together document that your organization only looks at when an incident arises. Responding according to plan it requires much more comprehensive preparation. So on screen here are the things you need to do in order to improve your odds of responding according to plan. First, you need to define roles and responsibilities related to ransomware response, specifically on your security or IT team, but also at the executive level. If you detect if your machines have been encrypted, in a meaningful way, what is your CEO's approach going to be? Speaking with investors, speaking to the company. What is your external communication strategy to the market going to look like? These are things you have to have nailed down before a ransomware incident occurs. Next, you need to practice ransomware scenarios regularly. Certainly, your security and IT teams need to continuously exercise and improve, but again, your second or third order stakeholders also need to exercise their relevant skills related to ransomware response regularly, if not as frequently as your security and IT teams. And lastly, you need to review the outcomes of your ransomware scenario exercises, identify shortcomings, and just continuously improve such that each subsequent practice it reveals a better response approach than the prior practice, or that when you actually have an incident, you feel very confident that you're responding as efficiently as possible. Moving now into kind of technically responding to pre-ransomware activity or a ransomware attack, you can think of the technical elements of response as containment, eradication, and recovery. So to contain a threat, whether it's pre-ransomware activity or machines being ransomed, you need to essentially contain the scope, ensure that an outbreak does not occur, or that whatever scope of the attack is currently going on, that you stop the growth of that attack. Example actions to take to contain a threat include isolating an endpoint, banning executables, blocking traffic to malicious IP addresses. Again, the goal of these actions, which you can generally execute via an endpoint detection and response tool, is to stop the threat before a real outbreak happens. Next, for eradicating the threat, example actions include removing malicious code from all affected devices. Code that might allow an adversary to jump back onto a device after you've booted them off initially. Revoking access tokens for any identities in your environment that are associated with affected endpoints, and then rebuilding endpoints that might require that. And in terms of recovery, you might have to just wholly replace affected systems. But in in addition to taking a retroactive look at the threat and remediating any vulnerabilities, improving your security posture, you might need to think about parting ways with any risky third parties that you believe contributed to the attack in some way. It could be a software provider, it could be a go-to-market partner, but taking a broader look at how third parties that you work with may have or may not have contributed to the incident that your organization had to deal with is a critical and often overlooked element of recovery. And just a kind of a story to kind of tie it all together and give you an example of how Red Canary does all this, everything I just talked about on behalf of our customers. There was a supply chain ransomware attack in the summer of 2021 that, in short, Red Canary fully remediated the threat for all potentially affected customers 30 minutes before the affected software vendor even announced that it was suffering a ransomware incident. So mechanically, the way it worked was that within minutes of the adversary starting to execute malicious actions, Red Canary's threat detections picked up on that behavior. Then based on additional process execution and research from our internal threat intelligence team, we associated this threat with our evil ransomware. At that point, our threat hunting team proactively reached out to any potentially affected customers, ensured that they had taken all remediative steps that are necessary, but also we guided any customers that needed any help with responsive remediation. We guided them through responsive remediation for however long it took for them to overcome this threat. And these customers were very fortunate, were able to go about their weekends because we mitigated the risk of this threat early. And kind of not deal with an unfortunate 72 hours that many other security teams had to deal with. That concludes my presentation. I really appreciate the time. If you'd like to learn more about Red Canary, I encourage you to visit our website, redcanary.com. If you'd like to see a demo, kind of see Red Canary in action, we'd love to show you. You can just go to redcanary.com/demo. There are complimentary resources, I believe, for you to download via the webinar interface. Many more resources available on redcanary.com, or if you speak with one of our sales personnel. But yeah, I think there might be a poll for you to complete. I encourage you to complete that. But once you're done with that, again, thank you very much for the time. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Alex. Now, as Alex mentioned, there's a poll. It should have popped up on your screen with the question, how can Red Canary help your organization? We know you guys are busy, but we're hoping you could take just a moment to respond. See, you can see the questions A, B, C. I'm going to give you a moment here. Select all that apply. Okay. Well, that's all the time we have. We're coming to the end of this episode of Coffee Talk. Many thanks to Howard M. Cohen for an insightful presentation, and to Alex Biliotis for joining us on this informative episode. And special thanks to Red Canary for sponsoring us today. We couldn't have done it without them. Keep an eye out for our next episode and for your Starbucks gift card. It should be coming your way in the next few days. Thank you, everyone, so much, and have a great day.